So nerdy.
Okay. I won't spill it on a brand new rug. Alright, welcome to episode 3 of After Bedtime. This time I did not have to fight her off TikTok. Kelsey's with me too.
Hello.
So I'm pretty ill-prepared compared to the second episode. So you want to vamp a little bit here at the beginning and just any big updates in your world? Anything going on in Kelsey land? Mom world?
No, not really.
Nothing? No funny stories? No kid
Well,
stories?
I mean, I'm normally not very good when you put me on the spot.
Fair enough. Let's see.
I mean, we got a subscription to ABC Mouse for Cal.
That's funny that you bring that up because that's actually like my first. So on the way to work today, I was listening to a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast, and that was actually one of the things that he's talked about it before, but it was in this episode again. Him talking about like basically like teenagers and screen time and like how old people say that spending all this time on all these devices is like ruining young people and ruining their ability to have relationships and communicate and talk and things like that. But so that's why I wrote that down as one topic to talk about because that's it's pretty hot button issue when it comes to kids parenting and electronics. It's very and the world is clearly very divided and very polarized about it, that there's definitely a camp who is like too much screen time is a bad thing and it's gonna permanently disfigure your kids, and there's a camp that's like it doesn't really matter. And I think the politically correct camps at this moment in time seems to be you need to limit your child's screen time. That's relevant because ABC Mouse is obviously an application that's on an iPad or a device or something like that.
My whole thing with that is that it's not. I don't necessarily think that you need to limit screen time, but you need to make sure that you're aware of what is on the screen. Because if they're watching just like these mind-numbing cartoons that just don't give them anything, then yes, I can see where that's bad for them. But what I've noticed even from the beginning of Cal, like whenever he first started playing with my iPad, he learned a great deal more than what I was teaching him from the iPad.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, what kind of burst my bubble on it was.
I mean, Blippi was huge in our life.
I think with most things, with most things of this topic, the black and the white opinion is wrong. Demonizing technology and preventing your kid from using it, to me seems extreme, but providing no kind of guidance and boundaries on it also seems sort of extreme.
Yeah.
I think I lean towards making it part of their life because there is a piece of me that is practical in that
it is their life.
Screens are not going away.
Yeah.
Like it's at some shape or form, technology is just going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger part of our life and our world and their world, even more so than it is ours now. So I feel like being able to interact with those things and understand those things and being comfortable with those things from a young age is in some ways an advantage, in some way is going to be helpful. But I also agree that there needs to be, you need to be clued in on what is your kid using the device for, how often obviously they're using it for. I don't think necessarily being hyper aware of it, like down to like the minute where as soon as you get to 120 minutes of use during the day, you shut it off. I don't really necessarily think about it like that, because I think having given our kids the freedom to use their devices and engage with them when they want makes them less fixated on it.
Yeah.
Because they themselves voluntarily do other things.
Yeah,
that, play with their toys, interact with each other.
I think they do that majority of the day.
Yeah, and I
don't think they're on their iPad majority of the day, and that is their own decision.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, giving your kid that autonomy to kind of listen to their own clock, and I think as parents, your job is to just be aware, is that going positively or is that trending negatively?
Yes.
And being there to try to kind of course correct if you see it is, okay, this is going negative, I need to step in.
Yeah.
Or this is a healthy balance. They found a healthy balance here.
Yeah. Well, I think when they are navigating the kids' YouTube themselves, I do see where people are like, you need to limit that. Just because they end up onto these videos that are literally just... They feel like when I'm listening to them, I feel like my brain is melting listening to it, because I'm like, it's giving them nothing, and it's turning them into these little mini zombies.
Which is the way people paint a lot of content consumption. Like that's how old people talked about radio. That's how old people talked about TV. That's how old people talked about the kaleidoscope. Like all these things are going to ruin our kids' brains.
I don't necessarily think it's actually ruining their brain. I'm just saying that if they are going to have a screen on, I would rather them be getting something from it.
Yeah, the quality of the content is important. Yeah, and I think I see that, and I think it personally attesting to it with my own kid, just when Cal started watching those Blippi videos really early, it was amazing to me that there was things he was picking up and learning
way faster than what we the other thing.
Not that it was like doing the education and the parenting for us, but it was so surprising to me how easily and how adept he could be at picking up.
I just didn't realize that he was needing that at that point. Like, he was, 9-10 months old?
Yeah, I remember it more...
He was like a year old and already saying colors.
Yeah, and I remember towards the first 15 months, as we were approaching that 15-month mark, where he corrected me about what machinery was, the right names for things, like a skid steer versus a front loader versus an excavator, which... I didn't know. He clearly knew the distinction.
I didn't even know all the names.
Yeah, and that's just, I don't know. So I think from the screen time, I guess to sum up kind of my feelings towards that is, I don't think it's evil. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. I think it's like with anything in this world, you can use it for some good and you can use it for some bad. And and especially when it comes to your kids, your job as a parent is to try to help steer them and coach them and push them to use it in a positive way. Yeah. And not in a negative way.
I'd almost, to tell you the truth, like to delete the kids' YouTube off of their iPads, because them watching YouTube on the TV, I prefer that. I prefer it because I can then control it.
Yeah, you're able to be more aware of it. And I think that it seems to be more their behavior now, as they're gravitating to wanting to watch that
I'm wanting the iPad to be more of a game device versus watching, because also the other issue is that Kyler is not 100% on his navigation skills on it. Whenever he goes to click Netflix, he knows Spider-Man is on Netflix, but sometimes he clicks onto our accounts on Netflix, and I'm just worried he's gonna accidentally venture into a movie that he shouldn't be watching.
I agree. I agree. I'm pretty laissez-faire, I guess. But I think that there are positives. I err on the side of not placing restrictions on it unless it would unless we start to notice it is becoming
Like
more and
they're
more of a
addicted to it or
fixation and
something,
obsessive. But I think we've struck a healthy balance with it, and I think it's been more beneficial than it has
Like
been harmful.
I don't feel like I've ever had to tell them to put their iPad down and go do something else. They naturally go and do something else by themselves, whether something shiny catches their eye and they walk away from the iPad, or they just get tired of watching the same videos.
We'll have to give a more comprehensive review of the ABC Mouse thing whenever we've only had it for like what, a day or like less than a day, but so far
we've had it for today, but so far I'm very impressed with it. I would in the future like to get the upgraded portion of it of tracking his development because I think that would be really cool because then I think that in itself shows that the app is worth it, because if you can see that
it gives you some insight.
Yes, if you can see that he's doing better, because there's not like I can't sit there all day long when he's.
And then once we start doing that, then we need to start doing like his VO2 max and his vertical jump and max reps on the bench press, and just start tracking him incessantly. We'll measure his mental development, his physical development.
I mean, not obsessively. I mean, you're more than welcome to start working out with him and doing like a little PE session.
That's kind of what it sounds like. They're like,
no.
I'm going to start assessing my child and measuring his.
No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I struggled a lot in school to the point. I was talking to Allie about this today. It's so crazy that it's like being brought back up. But I was talking to Allie today about how parents tend to overcompensate in the areas that they feel like they were lacked.
Yeah, 100%.
As they were a child.
Well, you just want to do what you wish someone would have done for you. That, you know what I mean? That's
because I'm saying it's not okay for a child to be sitting in a classroom and the classroom reading aloud and the child being petrified to be called upon or hoping that they would get the easier paragraph than the harder paragraph to show everyone that they're not a strong reader.
Navigating the existing educational system is one of my great concerns.
Well, that's what I told Allie. I was like, I shouldn't have found out that I was dyslexic like that far. Like, I didn't find out I was dyslexic until high school, and it was a Spanish teacher that brought it up. That in itself makes me think that I was failed.
Yeah, and you would hope that in 20 years or whatever, that
it's different.
It's improved or better, but I think though it speaks to that. I don't think that we'll struggle with that a lot, because I feel like so much of your education is about you make it what you get out of it is what you put into it, and I feel like as parents we will be very engaged, and we will encourage our kids to put forth effort and to, speak up when they feel behind or they don't understand things, and be an advocate and a support system for them to find those outlets for help. Yeah. And I don't think.
Well, I'm just saying that's why I wanted to get the ABC Mouse app, and I wanted to start doing more of like a structured curriculum with him to get him started, because I don't want him to ever feel behind. Because
you have a focus on that, I don't think we won't ever have to worry about that, because we will be attentive to it, like that.
Yeah, and I also want to open a healthy level of communication to where if he does feel like there's something lacking in his schooling or anything in our parenting or anything that he's needing in that point in life, I want him to feel comfortable enough to communicate that, because I don't feel like I was comfortable to communicate that I needed more help or anything like that because
It's
it made me feel stupid.
In the public school system, when it's a very community, it's, you know, when it's
Well,
very peer to peer.
And also the fact that like, oh well, it's just enough.
Yeah, and you don't want. But,
she's gotten just enough.
But
to
as
pass.
a student, yes, while you are individually responsible for your education and you have to seek out help and all those things, like not trying to rid ourselves of accountability, but that is a pretty big step for someone who's young and insecure and immature to like stand up and raise your hand when all your friends are around and say like, and to say like,
I don't get it.
Yeah. And I think that's where like it's good to start now to normalize that that's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed to get it the first time. It's supposed to take work. It's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to ask questions. That's not.
Well, it was like I started to kind of already see his frustration came back. Like when we first downloaded that app to where he would drag the shapes into the proper. You remember how frustrated he was because he didn't know how to do it? I saw his frustration rise again when it asked him to trace the letter A, a lowercase a. And he wanted to watch me do it on repeat. And then he went to do it and it was like so chaotic. Like it's
But that's good. I mean, I think that's exposing them to that feeling early on, because I think that's the feeling that's hard for people to get comfortable with, but that's where real learning and growth happens. Is you have to stretch a little bit. It doesn't need to. You don't want the task or the thing to be impossible.
Yeah.
But it does need to feel a little bit beyond your current capabilities. It's like if you're able to lift 200 pounds for 10 reps, when you go to lift 205 pounds for 10 reps, it should feel a little bit outside of your current.
Yeah.
That's what's going to allow you to
grow.
grow.
And then I also think that I may have been hovering too much. Like instead of just playing the app with him, and then whenever he wanted to go to the next step, I didn't allow it because he didn't do it right in that moment, and I had realized it. I had realized it myself that I was forcing him to do it, and then now it's no longer fun.
Exactly, because at this age, so much of it is less about.
It's about fun, and that's why those levels are not that hard. And then once he does it, did the A to enough of looking like an A, even though it looked chaotic in my mind, they allowed the button came clear for him to go to the next step.
And early wins like that are important too, because like we talk about that a lot. And like when you're trying to change behavior, you want the person there's a technique in motivational interviewing where you basically, like, if I ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you think you're able to go running every day after work? If the person responds with less than a 9, then you shrink. You make it easier and smaller, because you want the thing to be so easy and seem so accomplishable that they can knock it out of the park and get very early wins, because that builds momentum. It builds success. It builds confidence.
The first one he did was like really, really good. And then I made him do it again because that was my selfish of making him practice it. And then the more he did it, the more chaotic it got. And then he didn't want to do it
because he's lost interest and he wants to move on to something else. And
I should have just let him keep moving along, because it even says it in the ABC Mouse video that you may see that they're doing a game or whatever that seems too simple, but they need to have those easy wins to where they keep wanting...
Keep interest and
they keep wanting to do it. And which it was so cute tonight when he was eating his dinner and he got his iPad, he said, "I'm going to do my school while I eat." And it was like the cutest thing in the world that he was actually wanting to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's a good sign. I don't know. I think Yeah, I just think I personally am more optimistic about technology. I'm optimistic about how it can enhance your life and make your life better, and be a platform to improve your life rather than detract from it. And
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think,
I mean, but I feel I would ask all those people that are like, don't give your children technology, and because it's terrible for them. You have it. You know,
Yeah.
like you have it
And
every single
engage in it
day.
a
You
lot.
you engaged in it at work. You
it's
engage
just
in it when you get
it's
home.
just listening to headlines. I think technology is another way. It's kind of like money in a lot of ways. It amplifies whatever you are.
Yeah.
What you are as a person, whatever you get lots of or get a hold of, or whatever you have access to, kind of amplifies.
Well, I mean, it's just
It either amplifies your insecurities and your deficiencies or your bad tendencies, or if you have very positive tendencies and very generous tendencies, it amplifies those.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of it just, what's your intent with it? What are you planning to use it for?
Well, I mean, just the biggest argument is that yes, everything in extreme doses is unhealthy.
It is, yeah.
Yes, if you eat cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Yeah, cake is not good.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
But small amounts of cake, yeah, that's great. That's fine. It's just that you can do too much in anything in life. So as long as you are doing it in a healthy level and also paying attention to what your child is actually viewing and doing, and even if just allowing it to be, what am I trying to say? Just a better structure instead of just mind-numbing videos.
Yeah, you just gotta watch. You just gotta be mindful of it and aware of it, and I guess you use it for good instead of evil. Use your powers for good instead of evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the topics I had written. I was really underprepared. I didn't think about this till like 2 hours ago. The other one, though, we talked about last night for a long time, but we have talked about this before in the past. We've talked about this before. Basically, like the value of these personality tests or these psychological assessments, like Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, Love Languages, Motivation Matters. The one I brought up last night was the 4 tendencies. But all these different types of assessments you can do on yourself or your partner or together to get a window into yourself. It's kind of like a structured way of gaining more self-awareness and being more introspective.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how much value I feel like those can bring to a relationship.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to fumble, like, there's nothing wrong with like fumbling your way through it all, but it seems so inefficient. Why fumble your way through the dark when there's tools that you can use to have better relationships and be better communicators and understand, not only your wife or your husband, but understand your boss, your coworker, your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters. You can understand all those relationships better, understand them better, and have better relationships. And it made me think of like when we were first dating, or not when we were first dating, but when we were first living together.
Yeah.
And like living together is so, like, we had been dating for 2 years. Granted, we were, those 2 years were mostly in high school, where I was still in high school, you had graduated, but it's just a different dynamic when you're young, and then it's a different dynamic when you're not living together. Even though you've been together for a long time, because you're not with each other like 24/7, waking up together, going to bed together, managing a household together. There's so many things that are
really, it's the managing life together.
Yeah, and just letting yourself be totally vulnerable and open about like your tendencies and your behaviors. you uncover so much about the other person that you have to
Yeah,
work
but
through.
I also think that us doing it so young, we were much more open.
Yeah, because neither of us had really lived.
Well, like I wasn't embarrassed or insecure about anything that I did because
And we
hadn't had life to.
I feel like we were also very flexible.
Yeah.
Because of that, because we were young and hadn't really been, quote unquote, set in our ways. There was a lot of give and take.
Yeah.
But what it made me think of was the first time I really saw the value in these things was when we first moved out together. Just the way our schedules worked, you seemed to always come home before I did, which was normal. And then when I would come home, I would always get frustrated because there would be dishes in the sink.
Yes.
We grew up in very different households. In your household, all the dishes were left in the sink until someone did all of them all at once.
Well, but then on the other end, that was like my main chore. So I do think that when we moved out, I may have even like
it amplified it because you're like, I don't like to do
I
that.
don't want to do it.
I have the freedom now to choose,
and I can do it whenever I'm ready to do it.
But there was these compounding variables that added to this that now looking back I can piece apart. But we grew up in different households. My house, the expectation was every time you use a dish, you wash it, you load it in the dishwasher. Your household was a different expectation. So we brought that into the house together. Then we had like you said, you had the thing of you almost resent having to do that chore. But I would always come home and be resentful and frustrated because I would feel like, well, why after I've worked all day and I've come home late and you've been here for several hours before me, why have you not already done this? And then of course my mood would be bad, my tone would be bad, and eventually we would get into an argument over it. And I saw this play out between us a couple times or several times, and then it made me think of like the issues I saw with my own parents, and like how when my mom came home from work at times and things weren't done at the house, it was very frustrating and upsetting to her. And so the experience of her coming home wasn't always positive because you knew there was going to be this edge.
Yes.
And for whatever reason at that point in time, I had come, I want to say through, I'm not even sure where it came through, but at some point in time I had stumbled upon this love languages thing, and I had taken it. And in that, it gave me a window into this idea of how I give and receive love, about how I do things, I receive love through acts of service, therefore I often demonstrate love through acts of service. And if you're not familiar with love languages, it's basically just understanding how you give and receive love and how your partner gives and receives love, so that you can basically understand what each other is saying through their actions and their words in combination. And then I think I had you take it, or I had you talk about it or read about it, and you identified more with like quality time, and there's one that's like gifts, or was it words of affirmation? Your number one was quality time, and then the second was either maybe words of affirmation or the one where you like to receive gifts. But the point of this being that in that understanding allowed me to move past that issue.
Yeah.
So easily, because for the first time I was able to be like, she did not.
Well, I mean, it's not like this wasn't just like a couple fights. This was like a fight that just kept reoccurring.
Yeah, it was like
over
this
a
repetitive
span of like 2 years.
It was like this repetitive thing that
because we didn't do the love language until we had moved in here.
Yeah, and it was kind of like this thing that I was like, we gotta stop having the same recurring argument and the same recurring issue. All started by this one little, really, really small and really stupid thing. but doing those assessments, it finally allowed me to open my eyes and understand you're interpreting something she's doing based on how you give and receive love, but that's not really what she's doing. Like you're not telling me you don't love me by not doing the dishes, or you don't care about me by not doing the dishes, because that's not how you give love. Right? Because you were giving love in all the ways you should. You were spending time with me. You were giving me words of affirmation. Like you're doing all those things the way the way you give love. And that was just really impactful. Like for me personally, to be like, we don't have to stumble through this and try to figure this out by ourselves. There's a lot of smart people and a lot of great tools out there that we can leverage and use to like cut through all this and really get to what matters.
Yeah.
And
I think it helped us both, because then it made me realize, going and doing the dishes is something that is a nice gesture for Steven. Having that all picked up and put away and just stuff like that,
which
helped me realize that for you.
Yeah, and to me that's the healthy way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to give you an insight.
Like it wasn't just like you're here at the house, then you should be doing it. Like, or even I'm pretty sure that part of me arguing back against something like that, it was almost like me feeling that because I was the woman, then I should have the dishes done and the house tidied and stuff like that. And that irritated me, because I'm like, well, I'm working too. And why?
I found that I think what got me on it was just, it's trivial.
Yeah.
But because of that thing, the way you give and receive love, you're interpreting that one little trivial action as so much bigger and so much more meaningful than what it is. Because when you do an act of service for somebody, it is meaningful. It has meaning greater than just that thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're bringing that to this, and that's not fair, because that's not her. That's not the way she does it, But to your point, that I think that's the healthy thing is to, one, understand yourself and be able to adjust your reactions and actions, but then also realize, well, it doesn't matter how I give love. It matters how my partner receives it. So if I give love through acts of service, and my partner receives it in quality time, that doesn't mean my partner needs to interpret every act of service as love now. It means I have a responsibility now to think about that and find ways to give love in your language. And I've had this play out like with strength finders and understanding, like, and each one motivation matters, like the color scheme. Each one, they sometimes overlap and they share things in common, and you find things like, oh yeah, that makes sense, or this doesn't make sense. But the value in it is making you think, and it's making you stop and pause and think about things on a deeper level than just that superficial.
Well, I think everyone should take these quizzes, because it just helps them naturally be more aware of even just themselves. I think it's just healthy for people to be more aware, more self-aware of who they are, and then in turn the people that they bring into their life. Because I don't know exactly where I was going with that, just like if you are thinking that this person that you're bringing into your life is going to be the person that you spend the rest of your life with, those are healthy quizzes to go ahead and take, just so that you are both aware going into everything of what the other person needs and what you need to do. What you need to do for the other person and what they need to do for you, and how to communicate. It's just really, all of it is just helping with communication. Yeah,
it goes back to kind of what we talked about on the last episodes, that it's how important that is, but how educating yourself on it, how it's basically just instead of like I'm gonna stumble through this and I'm gonna go through all these painful fights and arguments and disagreements and hurt feelings, I'm just gonna try to be more learned about these things, and I think more than anything, it really forces you to develop empathy. And I can tell you, because I've done all this, I can pretty much tell you what each of my coworkers is. I know how they give and receive love, because love in a sense is not always totally a romantic thing. It's like appreciation, it's caring. So I can tell how each one of them likely does it. So I know how my actions are likely perceived by them. Then if I've done the motivation matters, so I can kind of put a color to each of them and understand like what's important to them and what they need to feel safe and secure, and how they're going to engage me. But that understanding, that awareness, makes every interaction so much more enriching and so less scary, because now you don't have to guess as much. It's kind of like profiling, but like in a much more positive way. Yeah. It's like stereotyping, but it's stereotyping with understanding this is just supposed to help inform how maybe it would be best to approach this person, or how it would be best to interact with this person.
Because this is how that person is naturally ingrained.
Yeah.
It's none of their actions are malicious, or it's just about understanding everyone around you.
100%. And so if I had to recommend, I would recommend everybody do love languages, motivation matters. I think that 4 Tendencies, that's the newest one that book that I just finished reading or listening to. That was really good.
It sounded really interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. There's a quiz online. You just search the 4 Tendencies quiz. It's very interesting. And then off topic, but if you have interest professionally outside just your personal life, which it would work for your personal life as well, but Strength Finders is really interesting because it reinforces the idea that you have innate strengths, kind of what we were talking about. You have some innate ingrained things in you that you could probably leverage and have a lot more success focusing on those and doubling down on those instead of trying to fixate and focus on every weakness that you have. Yeah. Instead, you can openly acknowledge your weakness and then double down on your strength and not feel vulnerable about your weakness. That look for people who complement your strengths, and that would probably help in any relationship, because then you can find people, you don't feel threatened by other people who maybe bring something to the table that's different than you.
Yeah. Well, I also think that just even bosses in general should pay more attention to stuff like that, because you going and yelling at one coworker may motivate that one coworker, but it's not going to motivate someone else.
Yeah, and I think and I've seen companies that do that, have these mandatory, they all have their own different ones that they prefer, but I've seen companies that as part of their onboarding process, they do that and they type you in some way and they post those results for everybody in the company, so everyone can be kind of aware of each other's tendencies and they can all use the same kind of language to interact and stuff. And I think that's very helpful. This coffee's good.
You're so weird.
All right, so that ends my very long and well prepared list of topics.
I think those were both great.
Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Why do you do that to me? Why do you put me on the spot? Because,
well, I just want to make sure, like, I have a tendency to get carried away about things that are, that I like, and I find,
Well, I think technically that screen time went right along with me wanting to talk about ABC Mouse.
Yeah, that was a good way to start. I'm surprised, like, when I asked you just when we began the conversation, you were like, oh, let's talk about ABC Mouse. I was like, oh, yeah, I put that on my list, too.
It's because we work well together.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Yeah. I think the last thing I kind of want to bring up is a parenting. I think it's a parenting win. So this happened last week, and it may be like this may be like a little bit of a brag thing, but it was a big parenting win for me. I thought about it all day. All day I thought about
You're
it.
like, yeah.
No, I thought about it.
I don't have to do anything else because I have this win.
I thought about it all day. So much about being a dad to me has been doing more than just the financial provider, more than just the physical provider, in the sense of, you know, we have money, we have a roof over our head, we have food. Like, those are all very important things.
Yeah.
But so much of my focus has been on trying to be emotionally there for our kids, and mentally present for our kids, and engaging with our kids. And like, I still have this spreadsheet that I read all the time about like the kind of dad that I want to be. And it was last week when I was leaving for work, and the weather was like semi-nice, so we were like playing before I left. And as I was like leaving, Cal was like, "Bye, Dad. Thank you for being with me." And it was like a dagger in my heart, not in like a bad way, but like in a good way, you know, because
it made you feel the feels.
Yeah, it made me feel the feels 100%, because because when you're pouring out all this effort, you're like, I say no to all these things I want to do. Like, you feel like they're not sacrifices in the sense that like they're so painful to give up. Like, it's worth.
It is still a sacrifice.
It is, in a sense, but it's worth it. It's a conscious decision that I made that I feel positive about. But there's still that little bit of you sometimes that wonders, like, does my kid really notice?
Yeah.
You know, do they really notice that I don't play video games until they go to bed? Or do they really notice that I try to engage them and want them to be around me when I'm doing things? And that was just like a moment where it's like, he does it in some way, in his own way or his own sense.
Yeah.
He does appreciate my presence and willingness to be with him, even if it is just literally be there.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
out of our children, you're gonna get that type of recognition from Cal, just because he's very, very lovey, especially with those words. Kyler shows it with like he loves cuddling and stuff like that, but I don't think Kyler is gonna outright communicate anything like that.
No, probably not. But it was just one of those times where I'm sure other people feel that, where like you feel like I'm pouring it out, I'm giving it out, and like, not that you feel like they're taking it for granted, but you kind of question in the back of your mind, well, maybe all this effort and all these things I'm saying no to, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. Like, maybe I can't.
But it really does.
But it does make it. Like,
it makes
but in those small
difference.
moments, then you're like, yeah, it does make a difference, and it does mean something in some way, shape, or form. And that was just, I thought about it all day. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. That was like the best moment.
He's an awesome kid.
Yeah, Cal's awesome.
Well, like, the funniest thing is that, like, to go off of that, is that today.
Then the next day I probably yelled at him or something.
No, stop.
That's my patience.
That he did something like that today when my friend came to pick up her son. They had already went outside, and she's like putting him in his car seat and stuff like that. She can't hear Cal, but Cal's in here. It's like, "Thank you for coming over." And he's like at the window waving. "Thank you for coming over. I had so much fun." And he like just kept saying, "Thank you for coming over. Goodbye, goodbye." And then as they're like pulling out, he's like, "I love you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
And that's like, it's encouraging, because you know so much of their behavior at this age is just parroting.
Yeah.
Like, they're acting the way they think they're supposed to act based on the way you've acted.
Yes.
You're like, they're a mirror of like all your positive and all your negative is being mirrored to you. So when you see that, you're like, I've done it enough, and I do it often enough that he thinks... So
you're saying that I like haggle my friends as they're leaving?
Well, no, not haggle, but...
Goodbye, I love you.
We've demonstrated the importance of like letting
Saying
people know
goodbye
that you
and
love them and that you miss
appreciate
them.
them. Yeah.
And you were so happy they were here, and that we've done that enough to him and towards him that now he's doing it.
Or that he's just seen it in general.
Yeah, to other people, and that's a positive because I feel so much of parenting, even as your kids get older, is like you have to be the person you want your kid to be. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be the man that I want my sons to be. That's
Yeah.
the kind of, I have to hold myself to that standard. And if I,
which I still struggle with that sometimes.
but I think we all do, because we all have that attitude of like, I want them to be better than me.
Yes.
So I'm going to just kind of try to coach them through my words.
Yes.
To do what
a lot of people think like that, but the biggest thing is that is showing.
It's the most powerful.
Yeah.
Especially at a young age.
Because like you said, they just mimic behavior.
They do.
And if they are only seeing those behaviors, that's what they're going to mimic.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not to say, we obviously still have to get on with the boys, and we lose our patience and all those negatives.
I mean, it's not like Cal still doesn't have a feisty little bone.
No, and I think we have to accept responsibility for all that, but there are those, like, that's why I brought that up, because there are those wins that you just have to really like sit for a moment and savor.
Yeah. Because
so much of your time is you're just trying to get from day to day, and you don't get those moments very often.
No. Especially from a toddler.
All right, so we hit the 47-minute mark. That went quick tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't as prepared as normal, or have as much.
I think that's totally fine. Because
I didn't bring as much energy as I probably could have, but it was good discussions, and the coffee was good.
I think our discussions are always good. But just the fact that people actually want to listen to it, I think is cool. Because we've already gotten, like, I know it's just been family members mainly, but, like, reaching out and being like, this is cool.
It's good, yeah. I mean, I think, like, I feel so much of it is, in my motivation is just the documentation of it, like.
Yeah.
I could care less if only 10 people ever listen. I'm fine with that. It's more the documentation for like Cal can bring it up when he's 30.
No, I know that, but I do think it is cool that we do have people that want to.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
That obviously our family respects and enjoys us enough. That they're wanting to take an hour out of their day to just listen to us talk.
Yeah, we have 6 subscribers on YouTube.
Have you looked? Can you see who they are?
Yeah, you can see who they are. I haven't looked. And last time I checked, we had like 20 plays on our audio on Anchor. That's cool. So like 10 an episode or whatever. But yeah, we appreciate everyone who's listening now or has listened before. Because I personally very much enjoy it. I just enjoy talking to you, and I like making it. I like doing the post-production. I like putting it out there.
Just enjoy talking.
It adds a lot of value. It adds a lot of value in my life, and so like if it can also add value in other people's life, that's that's icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So
if it brings joy to your day, great.
Yeah, great, and we hope it did. So we will. We'll be back with another episode, but until then, we hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll talk to you later.